The rain hammered down like it was trying to drown the whole damn town, turning our quiet street in suburban Ohio into a blurry watercolor of regret. I slammed the car door behind me, my sneakers splashing through puddles that swallowed my ankles, and that's when I saw him, curled up on his porch steps, soaked to the bone, his shoulders shaking not just from the cold but from something deeper, something that clawed at my chest like an old wound reopening. "Hey, kid," I called out, my voice cracking against the storm. "You trying to audition for a tragedy or what?" He looked up, those wide hazel eyes locking onto mine like I just pulled him from the edge of a cliff. Rain streaking his face in rivers that hid the tears but couldn't mask the raw ache in his stare. I didn't know his name yet. Hell, I barely knew the family had moved in next door 2 weeks ago. But in that split second, as lightning cracked the sky open, I felt it. The pull, the unspoken plea that said he'd been waiting for someone to notice, someone to stay. I'm Alex Harper, 22, a junior at Ohio State scraping by on community college credits and a part-time gig at the local hardware store. Back home in Willow Creek for the summer before the fall semester kicked in. Willow Creek's the kind of place where everyone knows your business but pretends they don't. White picket fences hiding the kind of secrets that fester like untreated splinters. My folks had passed when I was 16. A car wreck on I-71 that left me with a creaky old Victorian house. A trust fund that barely covered the mortgage, and a lingering sense that life was a rigged game you could only win by bluffing your way through. That night, as the storm raged on, I dragged him inside my place without a second thought. He was shivering so hard his teeth chattered like loose change in a pocket. "Name's Ethan," he muttered, peeling off his drenched hoodie to reveal a frame that was all lean muscle and quiet strength, like he'd been forged in some forgotten gym of solitude. 18, he said, just graduated high school in a nowhere town up in Michigan. Shipped off to live with his aunt after his mom decided she couldn't handle phases anymore. I handed him a towel and a mug of instant coffee that tasted like regret, and we sat on my sagging couch, the kind with springs that poked you in the back like accusatory fingers. He didn't say much at first, just stared at the steam rising from the mug like it held answers. But then it spilled out, in fits and starts. The whispers at school, the fag, scrawled on his locker, the way his best friend had ghosted him after catching him staring too long at the quarterback during gym class. "I thought college would fix it," he said, voice barely above the thunder rumbling outside. "A fresh start, but Aunt Karen's place is like trading one cage for another. She prays over dinner every night, asks if I've found Jesus yet." I nodded, feeling the echo of my own coming out story. My high school boyfriend bailing when his dad threatened to cut him off, leaving me to navigate the fallout alone. "You're not alone in this shit show," I told him, clapping a hand on his shoulder. His skin was warm under the damp shirt, and for a heartbeat, our eyes held, the air thickening with something electric, unspoken. By morning, the rain had cleared, leaving the world scrubbed clean and glistening under a hesitant sun. Ethan crashed on my couch, dead to the world. His face softened in sleep like he'd finally exhaled after holding his breath for years. I whipped up pancakes, burnt on one side, because who has time for perfection? And when he woke, rubbing sleep from his eyes, he cracked a smile that hit me like sunlight after eclipse. "You snore like a freight train," he teased. And just like that, the ice broke. We spent the day fixing the loose shutter on his aunt's porch, me on the ladder with a hammer, him handing up nails, our laughter echoing down the empty street. It felt easy, natural, like we'd been orbiting each other our whole lives without knowing it. Fall crept in like a thief, stealing the lazy afternoons and replacing them with crisp air that smelled of bonfires and change. Ethan enrolled at the local community college, same as me, majoring in graphic design because words always let me down, but images, they say what I can't. We'd carpool to campus in my beat-up Ford pickup, windows down, blasting Springsteen until the professors shot us dirty looks in the parking lot. Classes were a grind. Intro to Psych where the TA droned on about Maslow's hierarchy like it was gospel, and Ethan's art studio where he'd emerge covered in charcoal smudges, sketching feverishly like he was unearthing buried treasures from his soul. Our routine solidified. Study sessions in my living room, takeout from the Greek joint on Main Street, Late-night talks on the porch swing about everything and nothing. He'd open up about his mom, how she'd found his journal and burned it in the backyard, pages curling like dying butterflies. She said it was for my own good, he'd whisper, staring at the stars pricking the velvet sky. I'd share my scars too, the way my uncle had shown up after the funeral, spouting Bible verses about God's plan, or how I'd hooked up with a guy in Columbus only for him to bolt at dawn, leaving a post-it that read, "This was fun, but I'm not. Not what? Brave? Real?" It bonded us, that shared fragility, turning neighbors into confidants, then something more tentative, like the first frost etching patterns on a window pane. One evening, after a brutal midterm that left us both fried, we collapsed onto the couch with a six-pack of cheap beer and a bootleg copy of Brokeback Mountain I'd scored from a flea market. The screen flickered with Ennis and Jack's stolen moments, the mountains standing sentinel to their quiet desperation. Ethan shifted closer, his knee brushing mine, and neither of us pulled away. "Do you think it's ever easy?" he asked, voice husky from the emotion choking the room. I turned, our faces inches apart, the air humming with possibility. "Nah," I said, my hand finding his, fingers lacing like puzzle pieces slotting home. "But it's worth the fight." We didn't kiss, not yet. It was enough to sit there, hands clasped, hearts sinking to the rhythm of a story that mirrored our own fragile hopes. As October bled into November, the leaves turned the neighborhood into a riot of red and gold, and so did we. Study breaks turned flirtatious, me tossing him a pencil across the table, him catching it with a wink that made my stomach flip. We'd hike the trails behind the old mill, boots crunching over fallen foliage, sharing dreams like contraband. He wanted to design album covers for indie bands, capture the ache of unspoken love in bold lines and faded hues. I confessed my pipe dream of opening a bookstore cafe, shelves groaning with queer-lit and fair trade coffee, a haven for kids like us. "You'd name it after that cat you had as a kid?" He'd joke, referencing Mr. Whiskers, the tabby who'd ruled my childhood with tyrannical affection. "Hell yeah," I'd shoot back, the whisker and word. Your first exhibit goes up front and center. But beneath the budding romance, shadows lingered. Ethan's aunt started side-eyeing our late nights, her prayers growing louder, laced with questions about that nice boy next door. And then there was Jake, my old high school buddy who'd resurfaced like a bad penny, crashing at my place after flunking out of trade school. Jake was straight as an arrow, all bro hugs and beer pong, but he had a way of inserting himself, turning our quiet evenings into rowdy interruptions. "Who's the pretty boy?" He'd leer at Ethan one night, slinging an arm around my shoulders a beat too long. I shrugged him off, but the seed was planted doubt, the kind that whispers you're not enough. Thanksgiving loomed like a storm cloud, Aunt Karen insisting on a family dinner that felt more like an inquisition. Ethan begged off, claiming a migraine, but I knew better. It was the cross on the mantelpiece glaring down like a judge. I went alone, picking at turkey and small talk, my mind miles away on the porch where he'd be waiting with microwave popcorn and bad horror flicks. When I got back, he was bundled in my old OSU hoodie, 2 sizes too big, looking like a kid who'd lost his way home. "Missed you," he said simply, and pulled me into a hug that lingered, his breath warm against my neck. That night, under the harvest moon, we shared our first kiss, tentative at first, then deepening like a promise sealed in starlight. It tasted of salt and sweetness, fear and fire, and in that moment, I knew I'd burn the world down to keep him safe. Winter wrapped Willow Creek in a hush of snow, blanketing the sins of autumn under pristine white. Christmas lights twinkled like defiant stars against the cold, and Ethan and I carved out our own traditions, decorating a lopsided tree with thrift store ornaments, baking cookies that came out lumpy but tasted like victory. He sketched me as a holiday hero, cape made of tinsel, saving the day with a wink and a smile. I framed it, hung it above the fireplace, a talisman against the chill seeping in from outside. Campus buzzed with midterms again, but our rhythm held steady. We'd steal moments in the library stacks, fingers brushing over dog-eared paperbacks, or in the quad where snowflakes dusted our lashes like confetti. "I love this," he'd murmur, head on my shoulder during a lecture on romantic poets, Byron's wild heart echoing our own. Love. The word hung unspoken but heavy, a gravity pulling us closer. Jake, though, was a persistent burr, showing up uninvited, cracking jokes that landed like punches. "You two are like an old married couple," he'd say with a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. And I'd see Ethan flinch, retreating into sketches that grew darker, edges sharper. One night, after Jake passed out on the couch mid-Netflix binge, Ethan cornered me in the kitchen. "Is there something going on with you guys?" His voice was small, laced with the poison of insecurity. I pulled him close, cupping his face. "Jake's history, Ethan. You're my now, my always." We made love to the soundtrack of his snores. Not frantic, but slow, reverent, bodies mapping each other's landscapes like explorers charting unclaimed territory. It was sacred, that union, two souls weaving threads of light in the dark. But betrayal has a way of slithering in unannounced. It started with a text from Jake the next morning. "Dude, saw you two last night. WTF? Keep that shit away from me." I deleted it, but the damage was done. Ethan found the phone later, screen unlocked on the counter, and the trust we'd built cracked like thin ice underfoot. "You didn't tell him?" he accused, eyes stormy. "About us," I explained. Jake's ignorance, my protectiveness. But words fell flat, echoes in an emptying room. He stormed out into the snow, leaving footprints that filled with flurries, and I chased after, the cold biting like regret. We patched it, of course. Apologies over hot cocoa, promises whispered under quilts. But the fracture lingered, a hairline that widened with each passing day. Jake moved out a week later, crashing with his ex, but not before dropping a bomb. He'd blabbed to his circle, the old high school crew who still haunted Willow Creek's dive bars. Whispers turned to stares. At the grocery store, the gas station. Eyes narrowing, judgments unspoken but sharp as switchblades. Spring thawed the ground, but not our fears. Ethan threw himself into his portfolio, deadlines looming like guillotines. I'd find him at dawn, hunched over the drafting table, lines blurring from exhaustion. "I can't fail this," he'd say, voice frayed. "Not when everything else feels like it's slipping." I'd massage his shoulders, plant kisses on his temple, but the weight pressed heavier. Aunt Karen confronted him one Sunday, Bible in hand, declaring his lifestyle a path to perdition. He moved in with me that night, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, eyes hollow but determined. "This is home," he said, and I believed him, believed us. Graduation crept closer, a double-edged sword. Freedom for me, uncertainty for him. We planned a road trip, Route 66 echoes, motels with neon signs, nights under infinite skies. "Just you and me," he'd say, tracing patterns on my chest. But fate, that cruel puppeteer, had other strings. One humid May evening, as dogwoods bloomed defiant against the heat, Jake showed up at our door, drunk and desperate. "I need a place, man. Lost my job." I let him in, fool that I was, Ethan asleep upstairs. They talked, or so Jake claimed later. Ethan woke to find him rifling drawers, not for cash but for spite. The betrayal hit like a freight train. Jake had snapped photos, candid shots of our life together. Ethan's sketchbook opened to a nude of me, our tangled sheets, a love note pinned to the fridge. He sold them to the local rag, that sleazy tabloid Creek Chronicle, for a quick buck and a vendetta. Payback for ditching the brothers, he sneered when I confronted him, face twisted in ugly triumph. The story broke online the next day. Local scandal. Gay affair rocks quiet neighborhood. Photos blurred but unmistakable, headlines screaming judgment. Ethan shattered. He locked himself in the bathroom, sobs echoing like accusations. I pounded on the door, heart in my throat. It's not us they're seeing. It's their hate. But he emerged pale, resolved. "I can't hide anymore, Alex. But I can't drag you down either." He packed that night, called a cousin in Chicago. "Fresh start," he said, voice breaking. "For both of us." The climax came at dawn, Airport run under gray skies threatening rain. He stood at security, duffel at his feet, eyes searching mine for absolution. "You saved me," he whispered, pulling me into a kiss that tasted of goodbye. Fierce, final, full of the life we'd glimpsed. From loneliness, from myself. I held him until the line moved, until he turned, silhouette fading into the crowd. The drive home blurred through tears, Willow Creek mocking me with its unchanged facade. Summer stretched empty, a hollow echo of what was. I threw myself into the bookstore dream. The Whisker and Word opened in July, shelves stocked with Baldwin and Wolfe, a corner for local artists. Jake slunk away, town shunning him like the pariah he was. Aunt Karen softened, mailing sketches Ethan had left behind, a tentative olive branch. Months later, a package arrived. His thesis portfolio, bound in leather, first page a dedication. To Alex, who taught me home is a feeling, not a place. Inside, designs pulsing with our story, colors of autumn leaves, lines of tangled limbs, emotions rendered in ink. A note, "Chicago's got skyscrapers, but know you. Visiting soon? Love V." I booked the ticket that night. Not an ending, but a pause. A humanistic bend in the road, reminding us that love isn't a straight shot, but a winding path through betrayals and blooms. We overcome, not by erasing the scars, but by wearing them like badges, stepping forward hand in hand. And in the quiet of my shop, under the hum of fluorescent lights, I wait, knowing the loneliness is gone, replaced by the promise of tomorrows.